And so that website also, I think they screen therapists to make sure that they're not like that. And with Intact America, I believe it's the same exact thing. So people are screened so that the ones that are on there, they should not be dismissing or judgmental. They should be hopefully what people are looking for.
I'm back with Dr. Eugene, part two interview. If you missed part one, you can go back and watch that before this interview. So, speaking of the Intact America monthly meetings, how exactly would you go about like getting into those if you wanted to?
So I think at the moment it's open for Intact America monthly donors. I think it's not a very high amount that per month people donate. I think at the moment that's how it is. I'm not sure how if that'll be the same in the future or different. I'm not involved with that part of it, so I can't really say. I just know to the best of my knowledge at the moment, I think it's open to people who are monthly donors, and I think if they donate at least like $12 a month or something like that. I could be wrong, don't quote me on that, but I think it's and then they're eligible for the group, and I think they don't as far as I know, they don't need to pay anything extra. They just, they just show up and and we've been at every session kind of discussing different topics, ranging from I think, and sometimes it's been multiple topics, but we've covered a lot of the ones that probably expect. So like, I think there's one, and I'm not present every session. I co-lead sometimes. Sometimes I don't. We could do kind of a rotating thing, but I think the topic of restoration. I think kind of the double standard with men and women, with religion. I think that how people regarding recovery and overcoming the trauma. I think those are some of the topics that come up, and we also we leave it let's say usually fairly open as well. Like for people are welcome to I think share whatever basically more or less what they want and just think it's also it's a supportive place, so the therapists that work there, they're already checked to make sure that they're not just going to like brush it off or make the person feel worse somehow or just tell them to get over it or whatever. So we have a really nice group of therapists who co-lead the sessions and so far it's been great. People have been really open and like even from the beginning I thought people would be very but most people have been very just open, willing to share, very I think thankful for having that kind of supportive group. So and it's been really good. I think really very powerful for people as well to have something like that, to have a resource like that. So something I'm glad to be part of.
All right, so how big are these groups?
I think we were when we first started, I think it can be varies by attendance by week, but I think we had gathered it was anywhere, if I remember correctly, it was about seven to 10 people, something like that. And so I don't know, it can vary, I think, from session to session, but I think we wanted to on purpose, like, I think not have it be maybe like for now more than 10. There should be, I think, in the future more groups too. That'll be opening in the future after a certain number of sessions. And I think actually, if I'm not mistaken, people are able to even be able to still join, but that may need to be checked. But overall, it's usually really small. It's not like a group of like 40 people or something. I think that would be maybe a little bit too much,
That would
but
be a lecture at that point. That would be like a
yeah,
lecture
probably
hall.
more
Yeah.
something like that. So I think we were aiming somewhere from like the 7 to 10, 10 or 8 to 10 range, something like that. And I think when that's more or less what it's been kind of, I think at least from the start. Again, I think now I've been doing a few, and I think the attendance may vary, but we've been overall it's been going really well, and we've had people. Yeah, I think most people have stuck with it. I think most of them who started have stuck with the group meeting, so that's always good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you do other kinds of intactivism like beyond offering therapist services?
Yeah, well, for me it's been something, it's been an important cause I think over the years I've done. I don't, do it all the time, but just like posting certain things on social media. There's been, I also donating. I do donate to Intact America because I think they do really good work. Yeah, other than this, it's mostly just been kind of so on social media posting, or there have been times, I think, probably been a number of times when just talking about it with people I know, trying to educate, which I think sometimes it doesn't go so well. Sometimes it depends how receptive people are. I think some people are not very receptive, so it might be harder. But I think just putting the information out there, even online, and just, I think making your voice heard, I think can make a big difference, because I think a lot of people are afraid to even talk about it because it might be like a taboo topic of sorts for some people. And I think, unfortunately, when people don't talk about it, I think it can be easy for it to just seem like kind of normal and just keep going. I think when people start to actively talk about these things, make their voice heard, I think others appreciate it too, because it does take, I think, a certain amount of just maybe courage in a sense to come out and just talk about, or even post it, because you may lose some followers or whatever. People have some strong opinions, but I think it can be a good way to kind of contribute to the cause in that sense as well. Just being not in like I think it has to be, it's important that it's done well, but and with skill, but like posting things on social media, or maybe in other ways, maybe writing, could be, I don't know, could be blog posts or editorials or a number of things. I think there's many ways that one can contribute, but for me, that's the ones I've done have been probably mostly kind of the social media and the there's donations.
That's super awesome that you brought up social media because I had this question and I actually forgot it, and then you just reminded me of it.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, so with social media, it's very interesting because I've actually been thanked before by intactivists because Prevail over the system, that's the channel that we have.
Yeah.
We typically don't talk about circumcision bad, which is really interesting because we are an intactivist group,
Hmm.
but we're just like, hey, these are the strategies. These are what's going on in the intactivist movement.
Hmm.
And, sometimes the interviewers, they talk about circumcision being bad, which is cool. But for the most part, like, we don't actually harp on it too much. And I've gotten thanked for that because if you go on certain people's Facebook and if you
Yeah.
go to certain organizations, all what you will see is, oh, you're circumcised, you're missing 80% of your erogenous tissue.
Yeah.
Oh, you're crippled for life. Oh, you
Right.
circumcised your baby? Oh my goodness. Like that's the worst possible thing you did
Hmm.
and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
that gets like bombarded. So in your opinion, I'm sorry if I led you in that down that road. I didn't mean to lead you down
No,
that
no,
road.
it's fine.
But
Yeah.
how when it comes to being an intactivist, do you think it is helpful or detrimental for intactivists to be consuming circumcision bad content?
I think, like a lot of things, I think probably in moderation is okay. Again, I think if somebody's hyper focused on it, I think it can maybe be detrimental as well. I think it's important also to see how it affects oneself, which is where I think it's kind of some of the work I like to do with clients is kind of awareness or mindfulness type work, like really reflecting and seeing like how does it in the moment make you feel? How does it affect your life maybe afterwards, or after in a few hours, a few days, like how, like basically kind of just noticing what kind of effect it has on you. Like, is it helping you in life? Is it making you more miserable? Is it, I think those sorts of things can be helpful to keep in mind. And I mean, I think, if someone's just an intactus and in moderation, it's just to be kind of in the know and maybe contributing in some way. I think it can be okay. I think it's just a question of, I think, how much I think kind of the moderation thing, and then also how it's, because it can be different for different people too. I think how it's affecting their life and what the function of it is. Like sometimes people will just, I think it can be tempting to, on, a number of topics, just post really angry social media things, because in the moment feels like you're getting all this anger out. But I think if one looks more deeply, I think a lot of times it kind of, yeah, serves that function of kind of just like venting, but I don't know if it's really doing the best, or that's the best approach to convince other people. Maybe that one's not necessarily even, and again, that depends, I think, different people, how maybe helpful or harmful that can be. But I think oftentimes with those sorts of really just angry emotional posts, I think that message can sometimes get a little bit lost, and people can start to just, yeah, they're at that point maybe more venting and it's not necessarily convincing anyone or really contributing in a positive way. So I think that's something that's can be important to be careful with. So yeah, that's kind of what I would say.
Okay, yeah, because it's interesting because it's kind of like exposure therapy in a way, kind of like unorthodox exposure therapy to
Hmm.
put yourself through that. But it's almost like I want to say it's like rage bait. I guess that'd be like the social media term for someone to get emotional, for them to be like, oh, I need to do more. I need to donate to this group now. You
Right.
know what I mean? And I don't know. Like, I don't know where you, I guess, as a therapist would draw the line. Like, I mean, would you tell your client, like, hey, look, I know you're following this group and they're doing great work, but like, that is to elicit an emotion for you to like donate or engage with that post. And like that isn't beneficial for you. Like I don't know, like I just curious. I mean, I think you already answered that question. I guess I kind of like more expanded on it, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think it's no, I think it's a good question. I think that yeah, I mean, I think like with a lot of different marketing, and on Instagram and things like that, they're on purpose. I think a lot of things are aimed at trying to elicit some emotion and some action. So I think that having a like working on critical thinking skills, being able to kind of have more of that awareness and seeing like, well, what are they trying to really, kind of do here? And I think again, even within reason, I think within moderation, again, it somebody feels drawn to maybe donators, I think that can be good. I think with a lot of things, it's just a question of like if it gets out of control and starts having a negative impact on one's life. So usually like in kind of the mental health world, I think according to the DSM, usually something has to be either very like causing like a lot of distress and discomfort and also or being basically something that is causing you to not be able to function well in your life, interfering with your ability to function, being maybe even debilitating. So I think and that can be a lot of things. So I think there's kind of a range where it's really okay, and then if it gets out of control. But I think that can be for so many different things. So it's not just limited to people doing maybe like, focusing on circumcision and things like that. Yeah.
All right. So, how did you find out that circumcision was bad and like how old were you?
Yeah, that's a good question because I think growing up in like in the US, it was, for a while, I think just didn't know. And when you're in like whatever a locker room or something and you see like, oh, like that person's, that their penis is circumcised and like it was well, I guess to be kind of more open about like it was kind of weird for me because I'm like because I thought like, oh well, maybe something's wrong with me because I'm actually intact. And so like growing up, and it was always kind of weird because for a long time I thought like, oh, maybe something's wrong with it. And only later, I don't remember exactly how I found out about it, but I guess just online, maybe doing research things and finding out, and then seeing like, oh, wait, like that's not, you know, like if anything, not blaming or knocking people, but I'm saying if anything, just as a general thing, like that's not the natural male form. That's body modification. Body modification even makes it sound kind of like less bad than it is. I mean, again, like if somebody is think of age and of their own kind of volition, they want to do that, that's their choice. Maybe then it sounds more like body modification, but the way it's usually done with just unconsenting to infants or children without regard to how they would want their regard to their bodily autonomy. And yeah, people can say like, well, their parents know better, but I don't think that's true because also like that takes away the right of the child when they grow up. Maybe they grow up and they would have wanted to be intact, and I think plenty of people feel feel that way, and so it kind of limits their takes away that choice. So I think that, yeah, I think probably I just online or at some point just learned about it and started to see like, oh, like, yeah, this is not, this is not good. Especially the more research I did and kind of learned more, I initially thought like, well, maybe there's some legitimate medical benefits or whatever. And then the more I kind of researched, the more I saw that there really did not seem to be any legitimate medical benefits. All of them just seem to be just in a sense almost kind of made up. Like an example, I think the most legitimate one basically I found, was something like most legitimate sounding, I should say, I found was that, reduces the likelihood of contracting AIDS. But I think that one also comes under a lot of can come under a lot of scrutiny. I don't think that's a legitimate one either because first of all, like, a much better way to prevent is to use a condom. And I think there's a lot of faults with the studies as well that in them I think the science behind them, I think, is faulty as well. I think part of it probably also coming back to that kind of cultural bias of being carried out by American scientists who are themselves circumcised and kind of probably looking for a self-fulfilling prophecy of and wanting to just demonstrate that it has benefits where it really doesn't. A lot of the other ones are about just like lessening the chance of penile, cancer, things like that, which I think anyway is incredibly rare. And I think a lot of times I think a lot of it is just pretty much made up. I think with I think in reality it's just kind of an excuse to try to legitimize it and everything from like, well, saying like, oh, it might be, well, it's cleaner, it looks better, it's this, it's that. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of times people use the same arguments for trying to legitimize female circumcision, and it's just not there. I mean, I think if you and I would say I don't think nature's stupid, so to say. So there's a reason that humans, I think all, if I'm correct, all mammals just being born with a foreskin and so or something similar to it. So it's not, that don't view it as some kind of mistake of nature. So that's what I would kind of say, yeah.
All right, awesome. So actually, I'm going to go ahead and get into some fan questions, and
Sure.
you've done a wonderful job so far. You've actually answered two of them because I kind of asked it already.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I'm just gonna go through them real quick with the two you answered, just so the person knows that I asked them. One was, how can the average person know whether a therapist is intact friendly or not? And I believe you said just have a conversation with your therapist beforehand.
Yeah, I think the best way is just because, most people probably don't necessarily list it on their website. It's I'm not minimizing it, but it can be a pretty specific field. So some people may just list like trauma on their website and kind of they doesn't mean they're kind of anti-working on that. It's just that they may kind of include all kinds of trauma in that. And so I think the best way is honestly to just have a conversation with that there. Hopefully they offer like a free 15-minute consultation or whatever, 30-minute consultation or something, and just kind of screening and just asking them like how they view that topic and I think gauging their answer if they kind of just brush it aside or make them feel weird for asking it, then I think that can probably be a pretty good sign they might not be a good fit. If they sound supportive and sound like they kind of legitimize it and feel it's a valid issue and don't try to kind of just kind of brush it off or whatever, then I think probably onto a much better fit. So I think I think that's a good way, but yeah, I mean, I think it's unfortunate that I've heard a number of people have reached out, like just saying they've had really bad experiences, and it's really unfortunate. But I hope that that will change over time, and I think that it is important to screen, just like maybe for certain other topics. I think asking us questions before starting to work with a therapist can be a good way to do that. Yeah.
Well, do you think that's a defense mechanism of therapists to, I guess, psychoanalyze the pro-circumcision therapist? Because if they circumcise their kids and you're like, I'm upset about my circumcision,
Hmm.
and already, like, I think you're coming to, if you're going to therapy, you're already kind of shaken up. Like, typically people go to
Sure.
therapy, like, a lot of people don't even necessarily want to go to therapy, but they're trying to do the right thing. So
Hmm.
like you can probably
Yeah.
be on a hair trigger. So like I feel like even an answer like, wait, what? Like what do you mean? Like what? Just like that I feel
Yeah.
like could
Yeah.
probably trigger a intactivist or someone who's dealing with circum trauma or circumcision
Yeah, no,
trauma.
it's a good yeah, no, I think it's a good point. I think that I think otherwise it's just hard to see, how else unless they explicitly really say it on their website or something. I think it may be hard to say, but maybe even just like writing them an email. But I think that can be better at least than like starting to work with someone and then finding out that they are not supportive or just brush it aside. I think that can be a real issue when working with some therapists if they are circumcised and view it as normal, or maybe yeah, I think that can be tough. So it's yeah, I mean, I think it can be kind of a tricky thing, but I think
Yeah, to
part of it
like
is just being willing to kind of being prepared for the possibility that somebody may brush it off, and just knowing that that's I think it's important to keep in mind though that that's maybe that's even more their stuff or their, whatever their projection or just their discomfort, or and not, I guess in a sense as best as possible, not taking it so personal, because I think from a broader view, and if you look, I think most men in the world are not circumcised, and even though it may feel like the norm or whatever in quotation marks in the United States, it's really not. And so, I think keeping in mind that therapists here in the US more biased and more dismissive of it if you go to maybe European therapists, or I don't know, online, or just or whatever, if you happen to be there somewhere South American or plenty of other Indian, then I think they would be more understanding in general. Again, it depends who you come across. I want to make just generalized statements, but I think it's possible that I think it's more likely that in the US you may encounter some, or in like maybe a majority Muslim country where it's for religious reasons considered, again, normal in quotation marks. And so you'd have a harder time probably, unfortunately. So I think it's just important to keep in mind, and just not view it as something, again, like wrong with you. I think it's more a reflection of just maybe their ignorance or denial or whatever, or just things of that nature, or just their discomfort on that topic, kind of their ignorance on it. So yeah, I mean, I think those are possibilities, and it's important to just, I think, be able to kind of reach out, and if you even encounter that, just moving on to somebody else, and knowing that that person is probably not a good fit for you.
Hey guys, it's me, Pods. I'm briefly interrupting this interview to let you know about the Pods e-commerce program. It is vital to keeping the Prevail Over the System channel alive. Go and join us on our Discord to learn more. And best of all, it's free to partake in the Pods e-commerce program, and we don't need any of your information whatsoever. This helps us keep the interviews coming along with other intactivist content to empower, teach, and update Intactivist with very important information, as well as being the voice for the Intactivist public. Thank you all so much. Okay, now back to the interview. All right, so when you go to therapy, typically you're not supposed to do this, but in this case, would you recommend like keeping your shields up or your walls up or whatever you want to call it for like the first 15 minutes when you're talking to this person so you don't take what they say personally?
Yeah, I would. I think that's actually a fair point. I think that anyway, in counseling or therapy, it takes usually, I think, takes some time to feel comfortable with the person you're working with and trust them more. So I think, and that's a pretty personal topic to bring up in the beginning, but I don't really see much of it, because yeah, I mean, you can wait and then open, but then I think you just, in a sense, can maybe could have used that time to maybe find somebody else who would have been much more helpful, as opposed to like slowly starting to work with this, building up trust, and then finding out that they're like completely dismissive of like circumcision trauma or something. So I think, yeah, I mean, I think it's okay to bring up, but yeah, I think at the same time it's okay to like, yeah, not be like fully vulnerable, and just maybe a little bit more matter of fact, and just that you're just screening, or in a sense just interviewing them and seeing how good of a fit they are for the to work with you. Maybe they're not a very good fit, and that's okay. I mean, I think there's people who are. There's a section on the Intact America website where this is why I think it's so great that they've done this group, and also there's other therapists listed there as well who are in a sense pre-screened, so that people know that they're not going to, at least to the best of the ability of that 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 they're not going to, dismiss them, or just be judgmental or whatever. there's a reason that they're on that Intact America website. And there may be other ones too, but I think that's very helpful. Just like with there's another website I think I came across a while ago that's people are screened to work with sex workers because that is another population I think can be, even within the therapy world, there can be very a lot of judgment and like very directive saying like you need to stop what you're doing right away, et cetera, et cetera. This is the cause of all your problems. And so that website also, I think they screen therapists to make sure that they're not like that. And with Intact America, I believe it's the same exact thing. So people are screened so that the ones that are on there, they should not be dismissing or judgmental. They should be hopefully what people are looking for. And yeah, I'm not trying to like specifically advertise, but I think that's just one good resource. And again, there may be others out there that also have. I'm not aware of any, but I think that's why I think another good option could be actually just on Google doing research and seeing because there may be people out there who do have it specifically on their website that they're work with circumcision trauma that they're supportive and they're not going to like dismiss it or just make you feel stupid for asking or whatever. So and I think that's something I actually may add to my website as well, some kind of small, even small section so that it catches it when somebody maybe does a Google search. So I think that that could be another option without having to specifically like email or do like a talking to a therapist. So yeah, I mean, I think those are some other things that come to mind.
Okay, yeah. I was thinking also like the last thing you want to do is be invalidated because validation is super important. And
Hmm.
also, not only are you like wasting time, which is a concern for sure, but there's also like this creep factor because you are talking about your penis with a stranger.
Right.
And if you have a female doctor or a female therapist,
Hmm.
oh my gosh, like I couldn't even imagine, like, so what are you upset about? Be like, yeah, I don't want to talk about it right now. You know what I mean? Like I just feel like
Yeah,
just telling a
yeah,
woman that you just met about your penis that like
right.
just like I'm
No,
gonna get a lawsuit.
right. No, I hear what you're saying. I mean, I think to be honest, even like a good female therapist should be able to, as long as the client's doing it in there's different ways also, I think, of presenting things. So if that's their concern and I think it would be irresponsible for, what should I say, like, I don't know if you're responsible, but it wouldn't be in the client's best interest, assuming that the therapists, if they have good training and everything, I would say they theoretically should be comfortable talking about anything or pretty much anything and not resorting right away to like, oh, this person's like whatever, sexually harassed or being inappropriate. I think it would show maybe that like a potential area of improvement for them if that's something they're not comfortable or if they're not comfortable, okay, but then just like at least being able to say like, okay, like this is not something I feel we're working with, but here I can help try to refer you to somebody who can maybe be of more help. But I think, yeah, I mean, I think it can be super intimidating just talking with to anyone, whether it's a male or female therapist. It can be maybe female even more so, but again, I think that a well-trained, good therapist would know how to handle something like that in a more effective manner, and even if they're not comfortable, like still like not having enough skill to like not just dismiss you and make you feel bad, and instead maybe either refer you somewhere or give some other resources, but at the very least, I think not making you feel like bad for asking or somehow like yeah brushing off the concern or make you feel stupid or weird for asking. Those are all just general skills that I think because I think therapists, counselors, therapists, I think they usually are and I think should be comfortable talking about all things or pretty much all things because that all kinds of topics come up with clients. Sometimes sexual abuse comes up, incest comes up, it can be all kinds of things. Some other things are viewed as, taboo and so yeah, that's kind of what I would say about that.
Okay, that was Dr. Eugene part 2. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I'll put his links down in the description below so you can follow him. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss part 3 and our other Intactivist content we release every single week. Please share this video to get this out to more people. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.